Here we go now onto my second favorite Black Sabbath album and their heaviest album of all time. Master of Reality. Now this one, with this awesome freaking title, Master of Reality, which is awesome, and I named this entire series on, came out in 1971, a year after their first two epic albums. Got right back in the studio, I believe for either 1 or 2 weeks, just started chucking out tunes and riffs and recording them all. Now the artwork is really interesting for this one. It literally just says Master of Reality in like purple and gray on a black canvas, but there's some interesting versions that actually have the of reality part, I believe, completely in like black markers so you can barely see it unless you'd put like a light up to it, which is really cool. They could have done a little bit more with the artwork, but Black Sabbath doesn't have that many great artworks anyways. This is also the last album to feature their first producer, Roger Bain, and this kind of marks the end of an era too for the early heavy, darker, more murky, doomy Black Sabbath. And after this, they start to sound a little lighter, maybe even more progressive, and even a little bit more experimental as well. And on some of the songs, they had to down-tune to, I believe, C even further than they already down-tuned. It gave this album a heavy as fuck sound, but I believe it was only on 3 songs they went to C, which is Children of the Grave, Lord of this World, and my absolute favorite Black Sabbath song of all time. At this point, Black Sabbath, like every rock band, now that they were getting big from their first 2 albums, they decided to get into drugs, and their favorite one, weed. So they were a highlight during making this album, especially on the first track. Now, my gripe with this great album, to me it feels a tiny bit half-assed because there's 2 instrumental tracks that are really, really short, but 6 other really great tracks. But I don't know why I would have rather had if they just cut those 2 tracks, because they're pretty damn short when we would have had these 6 amazing songs. Bill Ward had a hard time doing Into the Void, like the drumming on there, and Ozzy even had a hard time singing some parts, like the really fast songs. And they said from this point on, now that they were given more time to record and more time to alter stuff, they would fight more, they would fuck around more with drugs, and the production would take a lot longer. The production's not very great, and it's a little grainy, maybe not even as good as Paranoid's production, but it makes up for that by sounding bombastic and heavy as fuck. So we get to the first track now. Sometimes I used to skip this one because I hated the intro. This one is about weed, and it starts with Tony Iommi actually like smoking a blunt that was way too big, and he starts coughing, and they just put that on repeat, so it's like and then that goes into this really great, rocking, fun-loving riff that's kind of funny in a way, too. And then Ozzy kind of sings parallel to that riff, and it's really funny. He kind of sings really high.
That's not funny!
And this has also become a classic Black Sabbath song and a fan favorite, and is a really great addition to this album, although it's not one of my favorites. I probably like 4 songs on here more, but that's not saying much because every song on this album is really great. There's also some just great riffs and drumming. Everything's really great on this song. Everyone sounds very good. I forgot to mention Geezer Butler's bass is really prominent on this album. It's extremely heavy, just like Iommi's riffs. So he really gets to show up a lot on this album as well. And his lyrics are very, very good throughout this album, especially on the next track, Sweet Leaf 5 out of 5. After Forever, kind of a cheesy sounding riff, you know, this really happy sound to it. And that goes in this kick-ass heavy metal riff. Now, funnily enough, Black Sabbath was getting a lot of hate this time for being devil worshippers and all being all satanic and stuff. But Geezer Butler, even though he used to be into black magic, is actually a devout Christian. So he made this song about how cool God was and we should all become Christians and stuff like that. Really interesting song. I really love listening to it nowadays. Used to not be a big favorite of mine, but now I really enjoy this track. The riffs to it are really great. This whole album, really, with all the heavier tracks, everyone sounds their absolute best. And it's nice to hear a religious song from them. You know, it's kind of like when Iron Maiden made Revelations to counter the whole Number of the Beast thing. After Forever, another incredible favorite of mine, and it is a 5 out of 5. Then we get to probably my least favorite track on the album, Embryo. This is a short instrumental with a very annoying acoustic guitar that I can't stand for what it is. Maybe a 3 out of 5, it's not that good. But that goes into one of the most badass, heavy, ball-busting, ground-breaking, roof-shattering, baby-throwing, box-chucking, guitar-slamming, drum-smashing, bass-pounding, glass-shattering, earthquake-creating, tornado-twirling, hurricane-stomping, war-starting, heavy metal riff of all fucking time, Children of the Grave! And this song is about how nuclear war is probably gonna kill us all. And this was during the Cold War era, so everyone was all afraid of nuclear war and shit. The riff is heavy and ball-busting as hell. It's so awesome, the drums really drive it, and there's these cool intervals, especially in like the little breaks between that main riff, where you can hear Bill Ward do this really interesting, intricate drum interval that's really cool to hear. The lyrics are really great on this one. Ozzy sounds great, the whole band sounds heavy as hell. There's some great transitions here and there, and the middle part is actually really cool. All of a sudden it gets really, really heavy. There's this kind of slow down part that sounds like a lot of other moments on the album. Because this part actually sounds very thrashy and kind of speedy as opposed to the more slow, heavy sounding songs in the album. This one sounds a lot more like After Forever. So you could say maybe the first half of this album is kind of fast while the second half is a lot slower pace. This is absolutely not only one of the best Black Sabbath songs ever, but one of my favorites of all time. There's a great solo in there. Everyone sounds absolutely the best they've ever sound, arguably. And there's actually this little part at the end where they keep saying Children of the Grave, Children of the Grave, and it's kind of weird and creepy. Not a big fan of that part, but the rest of the song is incredible. 5 out of 5. Then we'll get to another instrumental piece, and I actually really enjoyed this one, even though it's kind of short. Orchid is a really cool acoustic piece that Iommi does. At first it's kind of like, is he doing the same thing as Embryo? And then he does his really cool, almost like passing tone sounding things in the guitar, like really fast chords or something. So that's a really great instrumental track. Not too much to say. Very, very beautiful though. 5 out of 5. Then we get to another Black Sabbath favorite of mine, Lord of this World. And I believe this one has to be about the devil being the Lord of the World or something. And this song begins with this really cool riff that builds up this awesome fucking atmosphere, just like Into the Void will do. This and Into the Void are very similar songs because they're slow tempo and heavy as all fuck. But the intro is kind of mid-tempo, very crazy. There's a lot of intricate drawing from Bill Ward. All of a sudden, we get to the heavy as hell, awesome riff of Lord of this World. Ozzy has this really cool effect to his voice that sounds really badass. The lyrics are really great, and the delivery from Ozzy is shrill and heart-piercing. There's a lot of cool bassy transitions from here and there. We get to hear a lot of Geezer Butler doing some great bass stuff. There's actually this really cool section of the song that's a little bit different from what they were doing. It's nice that they throw some things up here and there, and it's really cool. So this song, Lord of this World, one of my absolute favorites, 5 out of 5. Then we get to a very, very interesting, weird track known as Solitude. It's a lot like Planet Caravan. In my opinion, not as good as Planet Caravan. It's a little bit more quiet though, and a lot of people, including myself, I believed it was Bill Ward singing because it's really quiet and hard to hear. But it's still Ozzy. He's still doing those weird effects with his voice, or not singing like he usually does, and there's not as many effects like on Planet Caravan. I can see where you'd think it sounds like Bill Ward, but have you ever heard the original version of Planet Caravan unaltered? Ozzy's voice sounds just like this, and it's really bizarre. The song's very, very melodic. All over, it's just a nice kind of stoner, beautiful song. In some ways, it's better than Planet Caravan because it's not as bizarre. There's not those weird bongos. It's not as stonery, but it's not as creative or memorable for me personally, but overall it's still a very great track, and it adds some uniqueness to this album. I think maybe without this track, even though a lot of people don't like it, the album would not be as creative and as diverse as it is. Controversially, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. To me, it's a really great song, and it has a lot of soul to it. Motherfuckers, we reach my favorite Black Sabbath song of all time, Into the Void. That down-tuned, heavy as fuck riff at the beginning is worth every penny. There's changes all over the place. It's like the epic of the album too. Every riff is epic and heavy as hell, really cool. I can't really remember what the song's about, but the title of the song, Into the Void's awesome, the lyrics are awesome, the delivery's awesome, every member sounds great, drumming all over the place, really badass. The riffs and the soloing, all the riffs that Tony Iommi plays are really intricate and great. And that build-up at the beginning is really cool, and the rest of the song has all these great sections to it. The verses and choruses are really badass, and is the absolute icing on the cake to this album. And there's a lot of great bass riffs too here and there that help connect each section almost like glue. I personally listened to the album from front to bottom without knowing about this track. I didn't think they would have a track this fucking good to end it. It is the absolute best Black Sabbath closing track ever. Just the way it starts in that title of the song already lets you know you're in for pure gold. So Master of Reality, this incredible Black Sabbath album that contains 3 out of my top 10 favorite Black Sabbath songs of all time. This incredible heavy as hell album gets a 9.8 out of 10. There's a tiny bit weakness in there. It brings it down a bit.